This tutorial is part of a series of 3 tutorials that will go over first how to construct a basic axonometric in Rhino, then how to add basic shade and shadow and export screenshots, and then how to overlay all of that information in Illustrator at a certain scale. So if we go ahead and start to construct our scene here, the first thing I'm going to do is put one cube in here that's 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. And what that's going to allow us to do is verify that our Illustrator file is at the right scale. So eventually I'm going to export this at 1:1, and this object will help us to ensure within Illustrator that we're at 1:1. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more objects in here. So the first step to this is going to be very similar to how you would construct an axonometric by hand. We're going to take our plan drawing, we're going to rotate it by 45 degrees. Now the next step in this, if you were drawing this by hand, would be to take your plan. You would start drawing lines, so we would draw a 1 inch line there, a 1 inch line there, a 1 inch line there, and then we would construct out that box and we would have our axonometric. Now in Rhino there's a much easier way to do this. So if we highlight all of our objects in our right view and we use the shear command, we can click on our bottom left point. We can go up vertically in space. Don't try to snap to anything here, just go up vertically. Click, and then we're going to type -45. So now we can see in our top view, if we go to shaded, that we have all of these objects in our axonometric view. The key to know here is that you actually are deforming the objects in 3D. So if you're going to do this with a studio file, make sure you save out a separate file first so that you're not overwriting really important information within that file. If we go into our top view, I'm going to just change the layer of this guy to show a couple of options with the Make 2D. And we're going to use the purge command to get rid of all the layers that we're not using over here. So if we go to Make 2D, you can see here we can choose which view we're going to take it in. So here we're in our top view, so we want to use top. We're going to use the view, which is going to basically take our viewport and make a Make 2D drawing out of that viewport. Object properties, so there's 3 different options here. So if we do from input objects, what you'll see here is that all of our objects are going to be on this curves layer that's output, but we maintain the sort of coloration of the actual objects as they were drawn here. If we do a Make 2D here, and then we do by output layers, all of these curves are going to be on this curves layer, and they're all going to have the same properties. So if we highlight those and we go to properties, all of them are going to be display color by layer. Everything is going to be by layer, so it will actually overwrite all of the information on these objects in favor of making them the same as this layer. Now the one I like the most would be if you go to Make 2D and do maintain source layers. So what this is going to do, you see that 2 new layers are actually added underneath curves, so it makes sub layers under the curves layer. So now we can actually turn these objects off individually. When we're taking things into a program like Illustrator, especially from a large studio file, this is my favorite way to do it because it maintains a certain amount of editability that you wouldn't have if all of these curves were on the same layer. So we're going to go ahead and take these, and we're just going to do an export, and I'll export into my desktop, and then we can just export this as media test 1. And I like to do here DWG. There is an option for exporting as an AI, but the lines sometimes get a little bit wonky, so let's go to DWG. We'll go to save. It's going to pop up with this this menu. Default usually works out fine. In this case I'm going to do polylines, and then we'll click OK. And then we have our 2D drawing exported, waiting to be brought into Illustrator with the screenshots that we'll show in the next tutorial.